As part of Operation Sindoor, at least 9 terror bases, including the headquarters of Lashkar-e-Taiba in Muridke, were targeted. Then when the Pakistan Air Force and the armed forces chose to respond to India militarily in defense of a UN-designated terrorist organization, whether it's Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed, India hit back and hard, using air power once again to strike at multiple Pakistan Air Force bases from Skardu in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir through Pakistan's Punjab province down to Bolari in the Sindh province of Pakistan. To talk more about the air power and the employment of kinetic force, with me is Tom Cooper. Tom Cooper is an Austrian academic, historian, and aviation enthusiast who's actually been studying military history and Operation Sindoor. Tom Cooper, welcome on India Today. Your assessment, Tom, your assessment of Operation Sindoor and the employment of air power.
Thank you very much for your invitation, and it is very nice to be with you. As for assessment of this operation, well, it did not start very beautiful. I said I was critical early on because Indian political and military leadership first opted to keep it a small affair, or kind of, we are friendly Indians, we are just going to strike your terrorists, please don't strike back on us. But then, and that was really, the more I think of it, it was a really amazing switch of the doctrine, of fundamental doctrine of the Indian politics, international politics, and defense doctrine as well, in a matter of 24 hours, from this cautious, over-cautious attempt to hit just the terrorists into a de facto all-out war, which then over the following, what was it, 70, perhaps 80 hours, disarmed large parts of the Pakistani armed forces. And the more I was following the developments, whether via social media or via private contacts in India and private contacts in Pakistan, and the more it went on, through evening of 7th of May, then 8th of May, 9th of May, and it became clear that Pakistan is losing. It is as clear as that. And when you see that the Pakistani ground-based air defenses have been hit, and heavily hit at that, and then particularly these massive, major radar systems and major air defense systems, long-range air defense systems have been hit, then the Pakistani Air Force has been pushed away from border to India, forced to operate deep inside the Pakistani airspace, enabling the Indian Air Force to get closer to the Pakistani airspace and launch its missiles to targets, against targets deeper inside Pakistan. And then the final, so to say, nail in the coffin was this operation early on 10th of May, when the Indian Air Force hit not only Pakistani air bases, but, and I know this is contrary to official statements in New Delhi, it started hitting also nuclear weapons storage facilities, at least in Sargodha complex, and probably also in Nur Khan, apparently also it was a command center for the Pakistani nuclear forces that was hit. Then you have the clarity, as military analysts, you have the clarity. Indians are hitting, Pakistanis are trying, but are not hitting anything.
That's a very significant point that you're making. And I will come to the point of Nur Khan, which is perhaps amongst the best defended air bases in Pakistan, in Rawalpindi. And of course, Sargodha or Mushaf, again, it has 4 or 5 tiers of security or air defense systems, from their man-pads to their long-range surface-to-air missiles. Now, in your appreciation, what explains Pakistan not being able to employ its air defense systems or employ them effectively?
It is a set. There was this fundamental switch in Indian strategy. For decades, your armed forces are outside of India considered actually a military superpower, but politics was not a core with this position. Politics was always, okay, yes, Pakistanis have launched another terrorist attack on us. The Chinese are pressing us from above, and always calling out abroad, calling Washington, calling Brussels, or somebody else. And in this case, all of a sudden, this politics changed its opinion. And what is particularly interesting is the ability of your armed forces to adapt, to switch also their own strategy and adapt to them and to act correspondingly. And then with success. That is primary thing, which means all of a sudden your generals have been able to operate along principles, fundamental principles of military doctrine, which is you first strike air defense systems, then you force the enemy air force away from your own airspace and, if possible, deep into its own airspace or ground it, and then you hit the selected targets. So when you ask me what was the reason for this success, this was the system. The entire Indian armed forces are trained in a specific way.
Okay.
And now, for the first time ever, they have been not only left, but ordered to operate this way.
Interesting.
And not for some kind of political, not for some kind of political objectives. And please be cautious and don't do too much. Don't hit them too hard. Don't target Pakistani armed forces. Don't target Pakistani air force and something else. There were no limits. And then you could see that these Indian armed forces are operating in a highly efficient way. All of a sudden, kind of.
That's a very interesting
people like me, knew there is this capability in India. We knew that there is capability, but it was never demonstrated before. And now, all of a sudden, I said within 24 hours there was a switch, and puff, they are demonstrating that they can hit Pakistan this hard. So this is really fascinating experience, so to say.
Oh, it indeed is. As someone who's been reporting on matters military, the manner in which the Indian armed forces were able to strike back, because if you were to look back at the Kargil war in 1999, the Air Force was then tasked not to hit across the LC, don't cross the line of control, now
your troops were prohibited from putting a single step across the line of control during the Kargil war.
Yes.
You have generals who can confirm this, and troops, of course, as well. Nobody was permitted to do anything more than push the Pakistanis back over the line of control, and that's it, and then stop. Yes. Instead of launching of an operation of this scope, hitting Pakistan, where it really hurts. So, which is even more amazing, because we have to keep in mind, these jihadists in Pakistan, they are not existing in vacuum. They are closely intervened with the inter-service intelligence of Pakistani armed forces, which is a military intelligence service controlling all the other intelligence services in Pakistan. And we have to keep in mind, these jihadists are integral part of this inter-service intelligence. There are military officers serving with them, and the inter-service intelligence is financing them, organizing them, training them, commanding them. So when they come to India to launch a terrorist attack, this is not just, the people actually carrying the weapons are jihadists, but the masterminds behind the operation are always Pakistani military officers.
And this time costs were imposed on that Pakistani military, as you say. You've said a very interesting thing. You said Pakistan was clearly losing. Why was it losing its air defense? Because apparently it has the Chinese Honky 16, the HQ-16s, it has the HQ-9B or 9P, if I may, and it lost a lot of radars, from the Malair Cantonment radar system to the Pasru radar system to the Rahim Yar Khar radar system. How did its air defense system just completely collapse and not launch a counter-offensive on the incoming missiles?
Well, they did launch retaliation strikes in form of missile and UAV strikes on India. But that is particularly marvelous performance was Indian air defense system and Indian Army air defenses. They have smashed, they didn't shut down all the incoming missiles. They didn't shut down all the incoming UAVs. Some have passed through, but they have shut down the mass of them. And with this, they have denied Pakistani ability to retaliate. If excuse me now for just such a strange example, if you come to my home and want to beat me, and I beat you and kick you out of my home.
Yeah.
Then you come again, and I beat you again and kick you out again. Then I've destroyed your ability to come to my home to attack me.
Yeah.
And then if I go out and continue beating you outside of my home, this is what has happened now in this case to Pakistan. Then I've destroyed your deterrence, I've destroyed your aggression, and I am in superior position to you. And this is exactly what has happened in this case. That means Pakistan has sent terrorists. Terrorists were okay, they were successful, but eventually caught or killed. Then India hits back. Pakistan hits, okay, it has shot down 4 Indian aircraft, but in grand total, it doesn't matter. Why? Because when Pakistan then attempted to retaliate against India, this UAV strikes and missile strikes were all defended by Indian air defense.
Absolutely.
Moreover,
so
then you have the combination.
Yes.
Sorry, just to complete this.
Please.
Then you have this combination of electronic warfare systems and Indian UAV strikes, which has demolished at least the most important systems of Pakistani air defense. And to this, Pakistan has lost control over large parts of its airspace. It had to pull back its own aircraft away from the border because they were not supported by ground-based air defenses anymore. Because this air defense system was, you cannot fight a war with just ground-based air defense system or just fighters, jets. You need both of these tightly integrated to create a bulb, so to say, over your country.
And in your appreciation, how severe are the losses that Pakistan may have suffered in terms of holes being punched in its airfield in Skardu, and to that losses of air defense system all along, from Punjab province to Sindh province? How serious are the losses?
I don't know precise figures. I cannot tell you they have lost so many aircraft or so many ground-based air defense. But also because, look, most of these losses, especially when it comes to ground-based air defenses, are temporary nature.
Yes.
You hit a radar, and 24 hours later or 90 hours later, it's repaired and it's back in operation. Mm-hmm. But for the duration of the Indian operation, these assets were not there anymore. It means they were whether knocked out or damaged or whatever for long enough not to matter anymore. And when you turn off the radar, when you turn off the air defense system, when you force the Pakistani Air Force to withdraw from the border and to get back for 200, 300 kilometers deep into Pakistan, then you have achieved your aim. And the aim is to have the freedom to target whatever you want inside Pakistan, and this aim was achieved. So this automatically means, I said, you don't need to know we have destroyed 15 or 20 or just 2 Pakistani aircraft. It doesn't matter, but you have the freedom, and this was evident through Indian airstrikes and missile strikes into Pakistan, which were hitting their targets, while Pakistanis weren't. So the situation was getting ever clearer and clearer. And at some point in time, I said, India then opted to start striking nuclear storage facilities. And this means this is game over, because Indian generals are always cautious, overcautious. Mm-hmm. They are conservative in their mindset. They were always holding back because their political masters were always ordering them to hold back. But in this case, all of a sudden, look, there is a video, Mushaf Air Base, nuclear weapon storage complex, boom, directly at one entrance, then another explosion directly at the other entrance. This means that these generals in New Delhi felt so safe. It is safe to strike such targets. And this means Pakistan is defeated. This is a clear-cut victory for India. It's as simple as that.
What does that mean for Pakistan's its entire doctrine when it comes to the use of nuclear weapons, that nuclear bogey? Has that been called out? Does that still remain a major threat? And officially, India has denied targeting the Kirana Hills, while they have accepted that they targeted Sargodha, and there were images from that satellite image that you've studied very well of the damage to the runway, to the cross-section, and I believe certain other assets at the Mushaf Air Base.
Look, Pakistani strategy was that of deterrent. And this is why they were boasting, and they are still boasting. We are super powerful, invincible, never defeated, blah, blah, blah. and our Air Force is the best on the world, and our pilots are so super, and so F-16 and GF-17 and blah, 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 blah. Okay. But India was determined and courageous enough to switch its doctrine and to say, okay, now we are going to call your deterrent, and we are going to check it, how good is it. And then it hit the ground-based air defenses. And it was immediately clear, something is not as good with this Pakistani armed forces as the Pakistanis like to claim it was, or they are so good. So yes, as you said, they have called the bluff. And it turned out this Pakistan is by far not so superior and fantastic and so tremendously super equipped and trained and ready as Pakistan was trying to convince everybody for decades. It's as simple as that, really. And what else is there to say? I mean, regarding this nuclear storage facility,
Yes.
and the Indian Air Force didn't know about it. By all respect for the generals and for the government in New Delhi, I mean, you don't put vegetables and sweets into an hardened underground facility,
Yes.
right within the complex of a major air base in Pakistan. It wasn't also flat screen TVs, no cars.
Yep.
So it was something else, let's say this way.
And the fact that if India was able to target both Mushaf and Jacobabad simultaneously, and Noor Khan, so was
And
that...
not only that, even more.
And even more.
There were so many strikes.
Yeah,
yes,
Rafiqi, I completely agree with you. Bulhari, the message was that India will not let Pakistan even put together its threat, because the command and control taken out at Noor Khan,
Exactly,
F-16 bases taken out at Jacobabad, and at Rafiqi and at Rahim Yar Khan. So no alternate bases, no support bases, drone bases taken out, and Sargodha runway damaged. Would that indicate that India is sending out that message, we will not even let you put it all together to target us?
Exactly that. It was this confidence. This is the fascinating thing. And this is what drew me then to conclusion. This is a clear-cut victory. Because all of a sudden, under post office, I mean, keep in mind my point of view. For 40 years, as long as I'm working, I see Pakistan launching terror attacks into India.
Yes.
And India never hit really seriously back. And now all of a sudden, that's why I say all of a sudden, after 40 years, India is hitting back. And then with such success. So yes, you have the situation where Indian generals were self-confident, absolutely sure, okay, now let's see where do the Pakistanis have their nuclear weapon storage sites. We hit the entrances into this. If there is second entrance, we hit that entrance as well. And that way, we are denying Pakistan the capability to assemble its nuclear weapons, put them on its aircraft or missiles and launch them at India. So this is, an absolutely new dimension of this conflict, so to say. And from now on, Pakistan will really have to think very, very hard about sending terrorists to India again. On the other hand, India might want to maintain its own deterrent, because India has to maintain this deterrent as well for the future. To think about organizing a group of forces, whether Air Force or ground-based missiles, in necessary numbers and size, to, in the case that Pakistan dares ever again attacking to terrorists, to strike immediately. Don't give them even 5 minutes after such an attack, but strike immediately back.
That's a very interesting point you make. That don't even give them 5 minutes. Don't just target their terror bases. Target the backers of terror. And in your appreciation, so far the military bases that were targeted were facing India. But the bases that were not facing India, whether it's in Balochistan or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, India's long-range missiles and other assets can even target those. So the kind of air superiority that India has been able to display, given Pakistan's pauper status right now, will it be able to, in your appreciation, and since you study aviation so closely, using the Chinese J-10s or the JF-17s, or perhaps seek more F-16s from America, or seek longer-range missiles, can they effectively overcome these losses, or how long will it take them to do so?
But that's a very good question, because technically speaking, or theoretically speaking, Pakistan shouldn't be able to afford F-16s or GF-17s or whatever, because the country is bankrupt already for decades.
Yes.
At earlier times, it was surviving thanks to Saudi financing. Then Qatar took over. China was helping in between. But last year, even Beijing had second thoughts about helping Pakistan. Why? Because when it sent its officials to Pakistan to construct this new Silk Road or whatever,
Yes.
and railways and so on, they came under attack inside Pakistan.
Yes.
They were attacked by the locals. And so when Islamabad last year demanded or requested 1.4 billion US dollar loan from Beijing, Beijing said, oh, sorry, if you are treating our officials this way, no way. So what happened? Pakistan went to beg for money from the International Monetary Fund. Yeah, and exactly now, that was 7th or 8th of May, in the middle of the war, in the International Monetary Fund suddenly grants 1.4 billion or 1 billion, whatever it was, loan to Pakistan, although knowing that Pakistan cannot pay it back. So that is for the backgrounds. So now consider the following. If they now want to spend this money for buying new arms, until now, it was so that IMF would have thought, oh, better we give them money, otherwise Pakistan is going to fall apart, and then its nuclear weapons are going to end in the hands of jihadists. That was assessments. You could read this for 20, 30 years already.
Correct.
But now, and this is why probably International Monetary Fund has granted this loan. But now, when they know, look, the Indians can disarm Pakistan de facto in a matter of 4 days, well, they might have second thoughts.
Very interesting. You should point that out. And you know, it's so great. It's so great to hear your perspective and an unbiased perspective on the situation that emanated out of Pakistan's terror attack in Pahalgam and Operation Sindoor that was mounted. Hopefully, we'll have you back on our show. Such a treat listening to you, Tom Cooper, for joining me here from Austria. Many thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.